Welcome, Joe. Welcome all to another edition of Stories with Sid Cassidy. And Joe, it's the last Monday in September 2020. How are things in your world, Joe?
This year is going by so fast, and we're in the midst of high school season here, as you know, and the season's going by fast. I just told the kids today there's 26 days left until districts and 40 days until state. So time is flying. I said, look, you can't miss practice. You can't do anything except for train hard. So, time's going by fairly quickly. We're almost done with 2020. Thank God. So.
Well, this year is going to spawn so many stories, Joe, as you know. I mean, the kids that are growing through it and all the crap they have to deal with and all the ups and downs. And I got to tell you, I am so proud of our beach group. The last week we had about 8-9 days of some really serious Atlantic Ocean waves, and it was phenomenal. And so I feel like my kids, all of them really learned a lot. And speaking of learning, we have we're going to honor one great coach tonight by having 3 coaches on. And Joe, you've been gracious enough to say, hey, I'll sit in the green room, but I want you to come back on or pop in any questions as you think about it. But Joe, you and I have been doing this type of thing for over a decade, and 3 of the biggest names. We've already had a couple of the guys on this year. We've had Bruce Gemmell on. Of course, he's a phenomenal coach, and Jack Roach, longtime great national team coach down here, lots of history in South Florida. And they've agreed to come on tonight to honor the gentlemen who we're going to bring in. And Joe, you've been to a few conventions, and you've heard Jon Urbanchek talk at the House of Delegates, right?
Of course.
And
should we bring him in?
And what's John's most favorite saying, Joe? When he's trying to encourage any young student, any young athlete, he's like, keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Keep it moving. I heard that today earlier. Keep them moving. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys
going
got
on for decades. So tonight we're really privileged because John's with us, and he most recently earned the highest accolade in USA Swimming, which is aptly named the USA Swimming Award. It was a Friday evening House of Delegates, and Jon got to make his speech, and I think we'll put up a link to that if you want to watch it, his acceptance speech. But overall, he's a guy who's been very humble, Joe. He's like the 2 guys I have on with him. He's been more and more about just getting it done for the kids. So without any further ado, we will bid adieu to you, my friend. And let's bring in the 3 coaching legends that are Coach Jon Urbanchek, Coach Bruce Gemmell, and Coach Jackson Roach. Jon, welcome. Now, you're coming to us from California. Tell us how it's going out there. How are you doing?
Well, the smoke went away. Luckily, the smoke went up toward Northern California. They're having issues with fire right now. But yesterday, I went down to the beach. That was awesome. Jack, you would have loved it.
What beach, Jon? When you go
San Clemente.
Right there where they have that big triathlon, or they used to, the same place where Nixon lived?
That's right. It's not
far from where the Swallows come back to San Juan Capistrano.
Wow, you should be living in the West Coast, man. You know more than we do.
So you're in San Clemente. Coach Bruce Gemmell, you're coming to us from the nation's capital, I assume.
I am in the great state of Maryland. Yes, I am. Just outside the nation's capital.
Okay. Welcome. We're glad to have you back. And Coach Jack Roach, where are you tonight, Jack?
I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, right down the road from Bruce.
Right down the road. So you got Maryland, Virginia, California. I'm coming to you from Boca Raton, Florida, one of Jack's old haunts. But Jon, I asked these young men to come on with us because they have a unique perspective of watching you grow through your years. As I recall, and now remember, I was swimming back in the day for Bob Matson in the late 60s through the 70s in Wilmington Aquatic Club. Bruce Gemmell was a teammate of mine, and he was a couple years behind me. But when Gus Stagger called me and said, hey, I want you to come to Michigan, I believe you were still at Long Beach State in 1974, maybe?
Yes.
And I said, no, not Jon Urbanchek's the coach. Maybe I'll go to Michigan, but I can't go for God. So, Jon, tell us a little bit about the beginning of your coaching career, where it started, and how you ended up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, before I get to that, I was just thinking about this during these introductions. Sid, how he selected the three of us to come to be part of this group. You said humble. So we're going to call this the humble team, because there are some coaches that are not very humble. The way I look at it is swimming or coaching or teaching, 50% X's and O's, writing tough workouts. The other 50% is perhaps understanding people, try to find the way you get people believe in you. Okay, so it's more like relationship building. And I feel like all three of us belong to this group. Okay, humble and relationship is more important than the X's and O's. And they asked me about what happened throughout my life as I'm getting older. I used to be more on the X's and O's, writing the toughest workout and see how much you can squeeze in 2 hours. You know, can you go 10,000 in 2 hours? Yes, we did it a few times. But as you get a little bit older, you get a bit smarter and wiser, and find that it's probably can arrange. You can get better results, better relationship, easier workouts, smarter workouts, but good relationship. That's where you get on the podium. I feel that I learned that over this 58 years. Now, I'm going back to your question. You have to forgive me because my attention span is kind of low, and
well, here's what I was thinking.
Real fast. So sometimes I have to ask you twice. Why did I pick Michigan? Well, Michigan, University of Michigan was a school that accepted me and offered me a scholarship. Gus Stagger was really nice to me. I needed a scholarship. I was without family and so on. So that was I'm the luckiest coach on this planet. I arrived in Ann Arbor, Michigan in January of 1957. My brain is getting kind of out of hand. And that's Michigan won the NCAA championships the semester I arrived on campus. It's not only Michigan won it, they won it the next four times the 5 years I was there. So 57, 58, 59 was a real good team. That's the only time I scored. I got a second place. Guess what event?
400 IM.
Come on, you can do better than that. Come on. Gemmell.
The mile.
The mile, yes.
The mile.
It was a mile. We didn't even swim 1650. We swam 1,500 meters, and we didn't finish at the end of the pool. We finished 10 meters away from the wall. That was most of you guys would not, especially the younger audience, have no clue. I said, Urbanchek is crazy. He's lost it already. No, that was unbelievable. But 440 which would have been 400 meters. So we actually swam meters, but we swam in yards. So the 440 was like 400 meters. You finished at 10 meters away from the wall. The way
they put a line, they put a wire above the pool.
Okay, all right. Here, let me tell you how it goes. Simple. So pretend you have the backstroke flags now, okay? So two people will hold the flag, and they put the flag 10 meters or 10 yards or whatever it was away from the wall. And they drop the lane, the flags at the water level. So when you come in, the timers were at the side of the pool, like they do it in track and field. And so when your hand touched the flag, that's what stopped the stopwatch.
Well, I had that exact same finish for Coach Don Sonio. He had Tony Bartle, and we were racing in Philadelphia Aquatic Club one year. You know, we had, because they were a 55-yard pool, and we had to do 1,500 meters. But you did that at the NCAAs. And did Michigan win the NCAAs when you scored, Coach?
Heck yeah, we won it 3-4 times in the 5 years I was there. 57, 58, 59. 60, we got beaten by USC because they had all the Olympians back from Australia, and then they won it again in 61. And then I left Michigan in 62. That was a long journey. We were going to get there.
Well, you know, Coach, when you left, one of my good friends and one of Philadelphia's finest sons, Ed Barsh, went to Michigan, and yeah. Ed. As you know,
was in my wedding. Ed Barch was in my wedding. Sorry to see him pass away at very young age. Yeah,
I knew you were very close. We were lucky enough to send him up to Indianapolis 50 years after he won the 200 backstroke in the 1963 NCAAs, which were at NC State, by the way. When Ed won the gold medal, and then we sent him up and surprised Mike Bottom, and Michigan man. It helped us. Actually helped arrange it with all the people of the NCAA so that Ed Barsh got to place the 200-yard backstroke gold medal on the recipient 50 years after he won it in 1963.
I was in the bleachers and observed that. He had the Michigan T-shirt on and a jacket on, very, very looked very prominent.
So Bruce, what is it about Michigan that sets it apart from any other university in the nation? Bruce Gemmell, do you have an answer? Can he hear me?
I think he's frozen.
He looks frozen.
Wow.
John.
Other than John?
Other than John, I mean, Jon Urbanchek is winning. Of course. I think your daughter must be using.
You know why you like Sid? I can tell you. The reason he liked it because back in those days, women started to swim at Michigan, but they didn't really have a locker room. So the women would and they take showers with the guys. And I used to hear about all these stories about it. So that Gemmell.
Safe sport, before safe sport. Yeah, the girls changed with the boys. You know, it was raining cats and dogs. Who knew? So John, so when you met Bruce Gemmell, you recruited him from Bob Matson's.
No, he not. I only had him on his best year, his senior year. He broke the Michigan record for 400 IM, and I believe it was in the 100 backstroke. And Gemmell was the captain of the team. That was my first year at Michigan, and things were not going as well as we would have liked to, mainly because, and Bruce can tell you more about it. Thank God I had a few guys who walking on a straight line because there are a lot of people walking on a crooked line. And that was a leftover of the 60s generation. It looks like they came from Cal Berkeley all the way to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they were not really into athletics. They were into anything. They were just rebellious. And somehow Bruce and a few other good guys kept the team on the right direction. But we set you guys, Bruce, we set the state. We didn't approve of it. And we changed. In 2 years, we changed things around. 3 of the best guys on the team were gone a year and a half. They were all Olympians, and they were not fit into our culture. It's not the culture Bruce Gemmell and the company wants to have. We got rid of those guys. And then the rest is history.
Oh, obviously. And Bruce, how do you remember it when Coach John came in and took over?
I swam with John for 1 year, just my senior year. And by then I was pretty well set academically, so I could dial the academics back a little bit. And I remember swimming for Jon for 1 year, and part of me was thinking, man, I wish I had swum for this man for 4 years. It would have been awesome. And the other part of me was thinking, hell no, I wouldn't want to swim with this man for 4 years. It would have been too hard. I would have quit. So maybe 1 year was a happy compromise. Maybe 2 would have been good.
Yeah, but you stayed around on your own for 2 more years while you went to the master's degree in engineering. And you didn't pay attention to me. You're not listening to me. I told you. You just said, Jon, I want to be a coach. Why the heck you want to be a coach with your degree from the University of Michigan, the greatest place on earth for engineering? Why don't you get into the engineering business? Don't worry about this swimming. You want to be like me? Work all day and not make any money, never be home with your wife, your family, you live in the pool. But finally, after 20 years later, he learned the hard way. He came back to swimming, thank God.
I want to ask Jack Roach a question because
it's about time before he falls asleep.
Yeah, well, he's when we had him on before, Jon, we likened him to the Yoda of USA Swimming, is what Katie Hoff said. She said, Jack brings this quiet positivity, this all-knowing wisdom. So when you observed Jon probably from afar, maybe you were coaching in Florida, he was coaching in Michigan. How did you two ships finally first come? And of course, you've both done tremendous things for USA Swimming in the last 20 years, but this is a show about stories. So how did you first come in contact with Jon Urbanchek?
I want to hear this, Jackson. Because Jackson had an opportunity to come to Ann Arbor and he chose not to.
Jon offered me a job. When I was coaching in Mission Bay, Jon was bringing the Michigan crew down to train during spring break. And for obvious reasons, it doesn't take long to get to know Jon and to understand why Jon was as accomplished as Jon was. And, you know, I'm looking at this screen and all I see is myself, and I don't want to see myself. How do I see everyone else?
Oh, no.
And so there are a couple of things that happened. I really levitated towards Jon's personality and the way that he treated people. And I also had this guy named Eric Namesnick that trained with me that I kind of connected Jon to as well. And a combination of Jon sitting me down in these different places and walking me through what he was doing with his color chart. And we connected, and that connection grew stronger and stronger, even though we didn't see each other that much.
Can you see this picture?
Yeah.
Eric?
That's beautiful. Right there is good, Jon. And Eric Namesnick, Jack, as you know, he was one of the, I believe, Michigan boys transplanted down to Spanish River High School and right here in Boca Raton where I'm coaching. We had a practice today at Mission Bay. There's one pool left. And with the COVID season, we've rented it out to annex some of our kids that aren't allowed back into campus yet. But I'll tell you, Eric Namesnick, Jack, go. Tell us about him.
Yeah, you know, Eric came in as a camper for the summer. And Larry Leibowitz and I convinced Mark that he should stay. He wanted to stay, and he wasn't in Mark's group when he first started. He was in Larry's group, and he was as good as you thought he was going to be almost immediately. And yeah.
Jack, I never forget at I watched him at the national U.S. Open 426 on the 400 IM long course, obviously. And Jack is the one you convinced me you go with this guy. And just a great 16 years we spent together. 8 years he was as a swimmer, and 8 years as my assistant coach. And to be honest, when I decided I was thinking about retiring ever since 1996 after we won on NC2As and so on. then finally, when in 2000, I decided, heck, why the hell I'm still coaching? Here's a young guy should take over the program. That was my plan. Of course, you don't always get what you want, so life goes on. But I missed him. But after the London Olympics, I took an early 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Took a flight to Amsterdam to visit with Snick's family, wife Kirsten, and daughter, son and daughter. They were 10 or 11 years old. I give both of them Olympic T-shirts. I remember seeing them, and it was, and our relationship's still very good. I followed them all the time. Last year, a couple of years ago, they came out here, stayed at our house while we had nationals at Irvine, California. They spend the week with them. So our relationship is very good. Unfortunately, the wife Kirsten had breast cancer, but she recovered and she's doing real well.
Well, that's good to hear. And and Bruce, you know this, and Jack, we've talked about it before. Losing anyone before their time is always difficult. And for those who might not know the full story of Eric Namesnick, he was cherished. I mean, and was up and coming as one of this country's best young coaches. And like you say, Jon, loved the sport and was such a great representative on so many levels. So I appreciate all of you men, and especially you, Jon, having had that close a relationship with Schnick. I remember when we went to Perth, Australia, Schnick was on that trip, right, Jon?
81.
81, 91. We
Yeah.
went down to the World Championships and we stayed in Fremantle. Do you remember representing the USA?
Yes. Do I remember that? This is an unbelievable story, you guys. How wonderful people. We had North Thornton was on our trip too. Remember?
And Jack was one of the coaches.
Open water.
I was one of the coaches for Open Water. Jon, you were a coach.
I give you two stories then. And the first one is, one time we went out to the movie, came back, I forgot a couple of the coaches, we went out. I came into my room, opened up my room, and my room was empty. There is nobody in there. The team, the guys, there was a window, like a big window or door to go out to the pool side. All my furniture was actually taken out. These kids had something on their mind. I don't think you guys find it out, but that was interesting. Yes, that's what I forgot. What the other stories? We'll come back later.
Well, I remember there were kids climbing down the hotel trying to sneak. We had the girls on one floor and the boys on another. And I don't want to say it was Ashley Tappan or, I can't remember who it was. But I know there were kids trying to get between floors and we were sitting out and then trying to police them. But the one thing about 91, because it was supposed to be in 90, World Championships, but it was just after Christmas. We did it early January, and Jon or Jack, do you remember with Dennis Conner and the America's Cup down there in Fremantle?
It was. Yeah, they were getting the America Cup started about a week after we left, but they were practicing while we were there.
Right, and so there was a lot of hubbub. But Jon, as I recall, Perth, Australia, one of the most beautiful corners of the world. And did you not have a return trip after those World Championships?
Yes, I did. 3 years later, I took the University of Michigan swim team for 3 weeks. We left a week before Christmas. I told the guys schedule final exams early, so as soon as you can get out. So we all left for Perth, Australia. And we had the greatest trip. Memories, unbelievable memories I have for that trip, and that's why I took my team back there, because I liked the 91. Then I said, well, we're going to have the Olympics in Australia 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road. might as well get used to Australia. So many of the kids made the trip to go to what 2000 was it 2000 Olympics? Is that what it was?
2000. Yeah.
Many of the Michigan people they made a trip there. So we were thinking ahead. Okay, we're talking about. It seems like we're talking a lot about relationship. I'm so glad that the way you picked this group in here is the relationship is so important, and not worry about just talking about X's and O's and the other things you can do. You can make these trips so educational. And Alex Brumfeld was my assistant coach, and give him a credit. He's a great guy, great organizer. Arrived to Sydney, and we had like a 12-hour wait. The whole trip took 44 hours. First, we missed a flight in San Francisco. No, missed a flight in Chicago to go to LA. No, San Francisco. And we got a later flight, then got into Cal Berkeley. And North let us work out with the Cal Berkeley team and continued our flight the next day. So that's why it took us 40 some hours to get there. But I forgot where I was going, but it will come back.
Well, you were talking about Perth, Australia, and how beautiful it was, and I remember that a few years. I think it was the year after Michigan won because I remember you won. So let's go back. You win the NCAA swimming and diving championship. You're the head coach. What is your go ahead, John. Go.
So we always schedule a trip. We try to go someplace that's sunny, either Hawaii or Florida or Colorado Springs for a heavy training trip. But I told the athletic director that I want to go someplace exactly. These guys want NCAA championships. Many of them is going to make the Olympic team next year, which they did. So I want to give them something great. So in 3 weeks to Perth, Australia, unbelievable training environment. And we visited so many things. Alex Brumfeld organized everything. We arrived in Sydney, and we had 12 hours to wait. So we left our luggage at the airport someplace, rented a beautiful bus, and took a trip of 12 hours cruising other sites in Sydney. Yeah, that was in Sydney.
Sure. Now, Bruce Gemmell, when you were swimming in Michigan, did you have trips to Australia and things like that when you took your spring break or winter break or?
No. We didn't go anywhere. We stayed in Ann Arbor. It was cold. It snowed.
Yeah, I didn't get the job until too late, and I wasn't. If I couldn't go to a real good place, I'm not going to go. And we stayed in Ann Arbor, a good discipline. We got a lot of training, and we started building the team. But from that day forward, we ended up going to Puerto Rico. We also went to Rio de Janeiro for a 3-week trip. And that was I think that was in Barcelona. That's where Gustavo Borges was swimming with us around the early 90s. That's where we went. I took a lot of exotic trips. Hawaii, we go a week before Christmas, and I told the parents, I'm really sorry for this, but we need to go to training. If we're going to go to training camp, we got to stay at least 2 weeks. Feel free to come with us. And a lot of parents decided to come with us. And we had a great holiday in Hawaii with the parents. So
John, that philosophy of inclusion is something that a lot of coaches, and you mentioned earlier that, there is certainly a common ingredient when I think of Bruce and Jack and you, and I think most of the American coaches that have been around that have gray hair like the 4 of us do. And the reality is when you put the athlete first, you're right. It's a little more humble. You're into that routine. But John, if you had a piece of advice that you could give a young coach who's watching tonight in this whole 2020 COVID coming out of it, we've had all these great experiences. Joe goes, big budget, Michigan, this and that. You talked about relationships. What is it about the relationships that these young guys should really stress as they come out of this?
I'm glad you brought this up. Okay, the virus situation said we had a time off, what, 3 or 4 months of time out. I just finished the training center in Colorado Springs in the 15th or 18th of March when we got kicked out. They said, okay, you got 12 hours to get the heck out of here. So we all went home. We had no place to go. I called up Schubert. I said, hey, Mark, I heard you guys, the pool is still open. And Mark says, no, John, we just shut it down today. So don't send the kids. I was going to take some kids with me to California to train. And Schubert said, sorry, the pool shut down. So everybody went home. And the point I was going to make is that how happy especially I was following the national team people, and they're always communicating on the Instagram and all that. And I was so excited to see that they were so clever and creative. Everybody find a way to get in the water, or if not in the water, find a way to stay fit and support each other, share what they've been doing. It felt, matter of fact, at that time, I still felt like we're still going to have the Olympics. I was so excited about it. You know, these kids going to work through it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. People learned responsibility. They had to do it on their own because coaches were not there. And that what really made a big impact on me. I'm not even there. And these guys doing creative exercises, that homemade stuff. Okay, I did the same thing. And so we got the job done, and we're still doing the job. So I'm excited that this was kind of, I said, I'm sorry it happened, but I think we learned a lot from it. And I think we're going to benefit for 2021. We're going to benefit from the responsibility people, the coaches, and the kids have taken up on themselves. So accountability was great. I gave everybody on the team, the national team, an A+ in accountability because they did the job on their own. We didn't tell them what to do. So I'm glad you asked that.
Go ahead, Jack. What do you got?
You know, we've talked about relationships a couple of times, and if one of my greatest takeaways in my relationship with Jon is that I believe that through relationships we become. And if I were to peel that down a little bit, it's our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, and in our craft, it's our relationship with the water. And through those relationships, I become the man I'm working on being. I believe I'm already that man. I just cannot always access him. But when I am that man, my heartbeat gets a little bit bigger. And that is a tribute to Jon Urbanchek.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Ruth, you got a comment on that?
I'm so far behind these guys. I just
come on, Bruce. You got to believe in yourself. Come on, I keep telling you. Come on, give yourself credit. Look what you have accomplished.
You know, they talk about the relationships and knowing themselves and the relationship with their peers and the swimmers and water and stuff, and I'm just starting to scratch that surface. And
keep scratching. Yeah,
well, keep scratching, right? You know, I've been doing it a long time, but in other ways, around these guys, I feel like I'm this rookie coach, and I'm just getting started. I understand how this stuff works.
I learned a lot from Jack. You know, I really, not only just a diet, eating habits and so on, but I learned so much. Just the other day, I was just thinking about when we go someplace, Jack treats people, if it's a waiters or waitresses or there's somebody at the door, let us in. Jack approaches them, tells them, how is your day today? And he got such a good feel for other people. And other people just look down at him just because they have a broom in their hand they walk by, they're not paying attention to it. But Jack and I would spend a lot of time walking together at the trials or at the Olympic Training Center or the games, and people come in to do your. We make our bed, Jack and I. I make my bed. Jack, you make your bed.
John and I had to room together because we were the least sloppy of all the coaches. And I thought I had it more together than John, being an ex-Marine. But I'll never forget, we got issued. It was World Championships in Shanghai. We were rooming together. We roomed together all the time. But I'll never forget, after we got all our uniforming, I had my stuff all like nice and neat. And I look over, and John has every T-shirt based on what day we're going to wear it in order.
I mean, I have to ask my wife. I get so upset with my wife. She doesn't like to make the bed. She's been doing it lately, after 55 years. But making a bed is like you accomplish something. Something, it's made. It's there. It looks good. Makes them. I don't know. It just gives me a real good feeling. Even a hotel, I make my bed, and the person comes in, wants to change. No, don't touch my bed. Nobody sleeps in it. And I don't want you to wash my sheets. You can wash my sheets after I'm gone a week. I can sleep in a sheet one week. No big deal.
Sid, I do believe that this is a time to honor and talk about John. And the other part that is so impressive to me on John and the way that he lives his life is we all fundamentally set our lives up a certain way. And, you see a lot of people setting their lives up to see how much they can accomplish. And then you see other people set their lives up to try not to fail. And it became that was another thing that attracted me to John. It became very apparent that early on that he set his life up to see what all he could do. And to him, nothing was more important than two things impact our lives or shape our lives: people and events. And the way that John handled people and the events that he set up, talking about all of those training trips. And, that is such a tough thing for coaches to do, to be away from family like that. And those are the lessons that I learned from John. But I think more importantly, as I watch him evolve through life, and I had this conversation with John last week. You look at the first quarter of anyone's life, and that's about education. You spend that time becoming educated. That's almost all of us. And then the second quarter of your life, I believe that whether you want to call it trying to find fame and fortune or just impacting a craft that you're finally involved in a positive way, that's the next quarter. And, if you think about John, education, then what he did in his second quarter of his life. And then the third quarter is one that you don't see many people do, but I watched John do it so humbly. That was give back to the sport.
Right.
And with expecting nothing in return, basically the opposite, just pouring his life into helping other people accomplish some things that he was a little farther down the path in. And now as I watch John approach the fourth quarter of his life, I'm watching him do that in a humble way that I just want to be more like that guy.
Jack, that's a great evaluation you made. I'm just thinking about it. I retired from Michigan in 2004. Been thinking about it for about 8 years. About 4 years into that, my wife and I bought the property in California. I wanted to go have a horse ranch. We have horses. I wish, well, get the heck out of coaching and let's work with the horses and everything. But anyway, so when Tom Dolan and Tom Malchuk came to me and said, no, John, those guys are still freshmen and sophomores. I said, no, you can't leave. And my heart said I couldn't leave. So I stayed on 4 more years, then 4 more years. And what you were referring to the third quarter is, but I left Michigan, but I didn't leave swimming. I didn't say I wasn't going to coach. I just left Michigan. I wanted to do something different. I walked out of the door at Michigan and went to Dave Salo, opened up the Salo Urbanchek summer camp in Soka University, and did a summer session with Dave. And I got a call from Bob Bowman. What's up, Bob? Jon, we need you back here. What the hell you want? What do you need me for? I'm done. Well, you could be an assistant coach. Okay, so I was an assistant coach. It's probably the best 4 years we ever had in the life of Michael Phelps. Okay, that was an unbelievable program we had leading up for Beijing. So I enjoyed it. Then Bob left, and Mike Bottom comes in and said, Jon, can you stay for a couple of years for the transition? Okay, I stay. So it was, and most of them, I was a volunteer in most of the places. I didn't do it for money. I'm just giving back. I don't need the money. I came from a poor country. I had no family. I had no money. I have more now than I've ever spent in my life. So I don't need money.
Okay, Jon, one quick scientific question. How the heck did you come up with all those colors and that thought on the cardiovascular training system? And how did that take place?
Yeah, you're looking at the genius.
I know. We all know that.
I see Mel behind you, Jon.
I am just BSing. Okay, the real story. Okay, my wife is a physiologist. Okay, she's been a research physiologist for decades and decades and decades. She's already retired now, but she's just like me. She volunteered back working for the Defense Department to give out grants for colleges who are requesting grants, and now she's spending all this time. For what are you doing it? Nothing. I'm just doing it because I want to do it. I want to read all these research studies that people are applying for. It helps me. So she's giving back. She's at the stage now. She's a little bit younger than I am. So is there a question in there for me, or what is it?
No, I'm going to tell you what it says, Jon. It's from John King, and he says, Jon, I remember back when you got hired at Michigan. Doc, which is Doc Councilman, said to me, Indiana would win one, maybe two more Big Ten titles before Michigan would take over, and Indiana won just one more. He said you were too good of a coach and just a great person. So John King says, congrats, Coach.
Thanks, Jon. Yeah, I remember that. Bruce, you were there when we beat him on that relay, didn't we, at the last relay? Gemmell, were you on the relay?
Yeah, I was on the relay with Mark Natzel and Kirsten Vandersloot, and I forget who the fourth was. I don't remember. And Tony Anderson and Joe Carroll, whose kids have gone and had some pretty good careers, and other people who were on the Indiana
Delaware,
relay.
right? Joe from Delaware?
Yeah.
So, Jon, that was the 800 relay. Bruce was never on the 400 relay.
Yes, I was.
What? No way, Gemmell.
Yeah, but we got a guy who anchored it with a 44.6. At that time, a darn good time. Okay, Mark Natzel anchored it, and Doc ran down from the bleachers, wanted to see the tape. You know, the tape, old school tape, the times, and you could just the old man. But I love Doc. I mean, he was my idol coach. I learned. He asked me where you learned a lot. I learned a lot from Doc. And even though we're competitors, but I learned a lot from him because he was into physiology. I'm into physiology because I flunked out of engineering, so I took a physiology class, and the physiology professor was also an ex-swim coach in Canada. I came to Ann Arbor to go get a PhD in physiology, and he used to come down to our pool to test us for because interval training just came across the border about the same time I came to America. The Europeans use a lot of what did I call it?
Well, Jon, I'd like to read you what said, Mariusz from Pinecrest, of course. Can you see that? Jon is the kindest and smartest coach I ever met. Combination of that is very hard to find today. Not to take away anything from Jack or Bruce. These guys are simply legends and what makes USA Swimming so good year after year. And I throw it to all three of you that one of the things that separates USA Swimming from any other nation in the world, and all of you have traveled the world, is the fact that we do make available the opportunity for people to skin the cat their own way. Jon, go.
We share, and we respect each other. I respected Doc. If Doc would have beaten me, I would go over there, shake his hand. Congratulations, or he's got somebody doing a good job. And we're better. Listen, I know all these foreign countries, okay? They're all jealous of each other. They don't share anything. They want to keep the secret because they want their swimmer to win a gold medal. Because some of those countries, the coach gets twice as much money as the swimmer. We get a handshake and a letter from USA Swimming to the athletic director at Michigan. Thank you for letting Jon go to the Olympics, blah, 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 blah. That's all we get. And we're not doing it for the money. We do it for the love of the sport. And that's why we're better than any other country. And let the other countries do what they do. We're going to whoop their buns year after year and year. Way past it, I'm gone.
Bruce, do you have thoughts on that topic?
I never give you the answer for what the physiology. I'll get somebody else talking, then I'll go back to the physiology.
Okay.
I think the COVID era has tested a lot of us, but since as a group, the U.S. coaches are always inventing and creating and changing and sharing, as Jon said. A lot of us didn't miss a beat. So what if we didn't have the pool? So what if we didn't have this many meters? So what if we didn't have this many practices? We just kind of rolled with it and created it. And I was thinking as we were talking, I think I've swum in 12 different pools and 3 different bodies of open water since, the COVID era changed everything for us. And the kids have thrived in it and they've loved it. And, any coach who was locked into, I have to do it this way and I have to have this many practices and we have to go this much yardage, they've been lost for the last 6 months. And, we just all figure it out. It's been great. It's been awesome.
Now, going back to the research, okay, like I said, I'm a pseudo scientist. I learned everything from my wife through osmosis.
So just because you slept next to her, you learned.
Okay, good. Okay, it permeated on the other side of the bed. But anyway, so Bruce, you were there. Where's Bruce?
Oh no! Go ahead. Bruce is still there. We're just trying to see.
You were there at the pioneer days of the T30s. Remember? I don't know if you did it, but I think we started it when you were my volunteer assistant coach while you were doing. Okay, so you were there at the beginning. From a German side, I had a Norwegian swimmer whose coach was a scientist and sent me that threshold, how to determine one's threshold, how you go from aerobic work to anaerobic work. There's a fine line there, which is not even defined, okay? All this energy system is all BS normalized because the heart is working all the time, okay? Sometimes harder than other times. So but we're making all these segments and, okay, this is there's a white place, there's a pink place, there's a red place, there's a blue place, there's a purple place, it's a cheetah place, or like Dave Sale calls it, a cheetah speed, good for 15, 25 seconds, and you drop dead. Okay, we all have their own system. So what happened is we figured out what the threshold was. Okay, it's very easy. You swim at 3,000 short course yards, and you go 30 minutes on it. What's your threshold? Minute flat. If you go 28, 30, then it's 57. Okay, so once we know what your threshold is, and I went to my wife, honey, we're in bed going to sleep, thinking about this. I said, how can I find out what would be how can I get the VO2 max? Well, how can I make this threshold become VO2 max? What do I need to, how much faster do I have to train? And she looked around in there, somewhere 7 to 10%. Actually, in reality, in my mind, there was somewhere 8.8 to 9.2. And it's okay, so if your threshold is a minute flat, then we have to go, well, a little bit more complicated than this, okay? Because we express this, we express the threshold in hundreds per yard, okay, or meters. And so once I figured out what your threshold is, then when you do interval training, you have to go to a red pace, and heart rate would be from 150 to 175, okay? Or the lactate was 3.5 to 4.4, whatever. That I never did a crappy lactate that's cost too much money and take too much time, and you can only do it with a small group. So I just stayed with heart rate, and I figured this thing out. And my wife said, okay, that's about, so we went somewhere between 7 to 10% faster, and put it in for a 50 to 1500, 500, every one of those. And that's how my chart came out. It's all clinical work, and it's always been done at the University of Michigan. And I didn't apply for any money. I applied at the USOC one time in 1996 because I had the best team I ever had in my life. And these are unbelievable world-class athletes. 18 or 20 of those guys were at the Olympics in Atlanta for different countries, eight of those from Michigan. And so I wanted to get some money. I asked for $6,000, and USOC didn't give it to me because we already had training camp in Colorado Springs. Jonty was running a training camp there, so we're not spending any more money. So they shut me down. So, okay, screw you. Okay, I'll go on my own. And so we didn't. We just did everything internally. And
Jon, I have a question for you. I would like you to ask your wife when she gets back tonight. Did she have any idea how many of the thousands, possibly tens of thousands of coaches worldwide, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of swimmers worldwide, that her thinking has affected over the last 3 decades?
I hear you. But every time I go visit a team and a coach throws in a workout where you have to do heart rate set, okay, or threshold work or whatever you want to call it, okay, and the coach says, well, this is the guy who made up the chart for you, saying, I take the responsibility. Yeah, okay, throw something at me, I can handle it. And it's what I usually tell people, it's demanding, very demanding, but it's also rewarding. So you can hate me for the first 4 months, but when you go to NC2As or a conference championship and you drop 15 seconds for the 1650, 8 seconds for the 500, 4 seconds for the 200, then you love me.
Jon, everyone loves you, Jon. There's no question. And this is something very simple. Jack, you know, Bruce, you know. And when I asked these two guys, hey, listen, I'm trying to get Jon Urbanchek to come on. And full disclosure, this was before we voted, and I was one of the voters on who was going to win the USA Swimming Award this year.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, yes.
Of course I voted for you. I said, my comment in the meeting was, well, hell yeah, we want Jon, because just think how much more exciting our meetings will be in future years having Jon help us decide who the next recipient is.
Okay, while we're on this subject, okay, I want to share this with you. It hasn't gone public yet. I came up with the charts kind of jokingly, literally at the time, wasn't thinking clearly. And because everybody had different names for anaerobic, the
aerobic threshold.
No, not the threshold, but
aerobic threshold. Bruce, what do you got?
No. It's coming back to me.
Jon, are you talking about colors?
Energy system. Okay, the energy system. Everybody uses A1, A2, A3. Australian using this and this. Everybody. I said, screw all of you guys, okay? I'm just going to put it into colors, okay? I looked at the facial color of the students are warming up, okay? They have no color. They just go nice and smooth and easy. Then you put in a little short, fast stuff in there. The next thing you know, some people huffing and puffing, have a rosy cheek. Then later on, you put in a heavy big set, and the whole face gets red, and so on. And then if you get into the hypoxic area, not enough oxygen coming in, you start turning blue because you don't have enough air. Then you go into the purple phase. So that's the end. Now, when I was made up with these colors, white, pink, red, blue, and purple, my thinking was everything but a heart rate. That represents each one of these segments, a heart rate. Okay, 120 when we're going easy, 150 to 170 when we go medium fast or special pace, red, and then we go really, really fast, 200, 180 to 200, whatever. So we have different segments. And just recently, within the last month, I've been working with Dan and Russell. I want to change my mind. I don't want to use the colors anymore. Okay, I want to go into gears. Gear 1, Gear 2, Gear 3, Gear 4, Gear 5. I don't think it's fair for people, the color, to use the color. So it's not published yet. You guys are the only people who know it. I just talked to Russell today. That will come out. It's basically a John School of Training, but every place we had a color, we're putting in Gear 1, Gear 2, Gear 3, Gear 4, Gear 5. And then and this was my last project because I'm retired and I'm not going to do any more physiology. There's plenty of great coaches out there. Let them handle it. But before I'm gone, I wanted to change this. I want to please everybody. I don't.
Well, Jon, it's awesome that you want to please everyone. And for those of us old school guys who remember the red and the purples, that we'll probably stick with the colors. And if the new age kids want to come along and call them gears 1 through 10 or what, and that's fine too. Because the reality is, Jon, what you've given this sport, not just as a pseudoscientist, as you call yourself, thanks to your wife, you had that, but more so as this relationship guru, that every person who has ever been on a national team where you were on the staff, and I have to say, Jack and Bruce are much like that too, but every person who you've come in contact with in any way in our great profession has nothing but great things. Oh, Jon made me laugh. Oh, this and that. And Jon, you actually helped me make a little bit of money in London. I'm not going to say who I bet on, but when I came down to the training pool and watched you working out with some distance swimmers, there was a young lady who was not favored. And boy, those London betting parlors were very eager to take 10-1 odds. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I got in trouble a little bit with my group because I put Katie in there with our 1,500 guys. Bruce, your son was in that group, but man, he complained the most. He said, "Get her out of our lane! She's crawling, she's climbing all over us." She was holding 101s 1 minute, and the boys were holding, right 101 1 minute. She was supposed to hold 103s per 100. But okay, Bruce, okay.
Well, for those who don't know, what Jon's talking about is Bruce's son, Andrew Gemmell, had won the 1,500 at the Olympic trials in 2012, even though he was really thought of in probably the 4 years previous as a great open water. We might have him in the 10K. He turned his life around. That's a whole nother story, thanks to Andrew and great coaching. But Jon, that girl, as a young girl, when we were at the NCSA championships in Orlando and I watched her come along, I'm thinking, holy cow, man, this nation's capital team has a real tiger in the tank. And Katie Ledecky in London, this was before Bruce coached her, but what do you remember about that? And Jack, you were on staff then? No? Yes? Maybe? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that special trip. Go ahead, Jack. You start, and then we'll go back to Jon.
Well, John and I were roommates, and I was working with John with that group, and I really don't have any more to add other than the guys were scattering.
I like that. So Bruce, you were there. Your son was obviously, swimming the 1500. Because what do you remember about that London distance group?
Well, we went down to I went to the training camp for a few days in Tennessee, and it was Katie and Kate Ziegler and Connor Yeager and my son Andrew. And to John and Jack's recollection, Katie was tearing it up a little bit and making the other three in that group a little bit uncomfortable. So I do remember that. And actually, I remember one set where for some reason the 400 diameters came over with the group. So Ryan was in that group for that day. And he was like, hell no, I'm not going first. I'll let the milers go first. So he made all the milers go ahead of him for a freestyle threshold day.
And John, I'm gonna let you talk about 2012, and then we're gonna go around the horn and let everybody say goodnight. But what do you remember special about that distance group of 2012?
Well, a great group of because Bruce.
Bruce had Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew and Connor and Matt McLean. Okay.
Kate Ziegler.
Yeah, Ziegler and Tyler Clary. Yeah, we had a pretty solid group, but the work ethic was unbelievable because remember we had that who had that Call Me Baby or Call Me Maybe. What was that song?
That's it.
Call Me Maybe. Carly Rae Jepsen or something.
And I'm running a workout, Bruce. I don't know if you were there. We had a long workout. Everybody else is done, and they're waiting for us to finish because we will make this
video. But it was a video.
Yeah. Then somebody comes, maybe Missy comes over with a phone and said, I'm busy. Come on, I'm finishing workout. Well, come on, baby. Can we do this? Here's the phone. I said, what do you want me to do? I want you to walk across here and sing or do something. All right, go ahead. Then I said, oh, screw you. Then I'm busy. My guys are working out, and girls. I didn't find out until the next morning what we were doing.
And it's still a legendary music video to this day.
Yeah. So that's my greatest recollection, because the coaching staff makes a big difference. It was the staff are in harmony. Everybody's cheering for each other. Some of my kids go to another group to work out. Well, I'm going to go to Bob's group. Okay, somebody comes from Bob's group, come over to my group. Everybody's sharing. And like I said this earlier today, we're so different from the rest of the world. They'll get to the little groups in there. Coach, if you want swimmer, one coach, and they don't keep 6 feet apart, that's for sure. Holding hands and it's not the way we coach in America. We go anywhere, go to that guy. Do sprints. What do we Dave Salo? Salo will give you sprints.
Oh yeah, John, you've been unbelievable. The perfect guest on Stories with Sid, and I hope, like the gentlemen who are in the boxes beneath us, that you'll be a recurring guest, just like Jack and Bruce are. So we're going to go around. I'm going to start with Jack and then ask Bruce. Just give us a little piece of wisdom or a signing off, something to give the young coaches or the young students out there that are appealing to deal with the rest of what 2020 has to offer, and leave us with a little something that we can remember. Jack, go ahead, lead us off.
Okay, two things. The first one is that science shows that humans can only train three things. One is the body, one is the mind, and one is the craft. That's the only three things science says we can train as people. And Jon has shown me that there's a fourth thing, the human spirit. And then I guess I would end by, I'm a big sailor, so my very favorite maritime saying is hold fast and stay true. And back when ships were made of wood and men and women were made of iron, and big waves would be coming over the bow of a boat, they would go, hold fast, hold fast. And that was to tell everybody to look around and grab a hold of something that had been there before, as it would weather the storm. And then the other thing was stay true. And stay true meant remember why you were on this journey to begin with. That will get you through this journey. So hold fast and stay true.
Amen. Love that. How about you, Bruce? What do you got for us?
I would like to do something that I don't think I've done before and thank Jon for something. And I could thank Jon for 1,000 things and I'd still be 1,000 short. But in 2011, actually the end of 2010, after I had coached my son for a number of years and he had 1 year with the great Harvey Humphreys at the University of Georgia, I suggested, or I had the thought that maybe Andrew should go train with Jon to get ready for the Olympic open water trials. And Jack Barrowley and Harvey were very giving at that time and granted or decided with Andrew that he could take a redshirt year. And I think I imposed myself a little bit on Jon and I said, hey, will you take this kid? He's never won anything and he's not much of a miler, but I think he could be okay in open water. And he went out and trained with Jon at Fullerton for 6 months. And not only did he come back as a pretty good swimmer, but he came back as a better person. And I credit that to Jon and that group he had out there. So thank you, Jon. I appreciate all you did for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. That's beautiful, Bruce. So, Jon, you're going to close it out for us with the comments and anything you'd like to leave us with.
Yes. I got some, I think for young coaches, I think this is a good one I remember. I left Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1962 when I graduated, got a quick job at Dayton Dolphins in Dayton, Ohio. A kind of semi-age group team. And unfortunately, that job didn't last too long. Okay, I don't think I did a good job. I wasn't asked to come back. I wasn't fired, but basically I was fired. Okay, it could happen to anybody. But you learn a lot more from losing than you're winning. So I've tried to figure out where I might have made my mistake, and then I just got into my Austin Healey. I got into my Austin Healey sports car.
Jon's getting into his Austin Healey. Okay.
Surfboard sticking out of the back.
Can you see that?
Hold it up higher.
Oh, that's a beautiful. Oh my God.
1961 Austin Healey. But this place in Ohio where I worked, I ran a country club to a very kind of exclusive country club and paid me big, more than I deserved, even though they let me go. And so I sold my junky car I had in college. I had 4 colors on it. Every fender was a different color. I was embarrassing to drive into the country club where I worked with the jalopy. I should have been, have a broom in my hand or something. And so I went out and bought the Austin Healey. Being a foreigner, not having anything in my life, okay, I put all my money, $1,500, 50 some years, it was a big bucks, big money. I bought this Austin Healey and drove it out to California. And Jack, remember, this is the time I used to be surfing. You were allowed to put in a passenger compartment a board. And we had those long boards, 8, 9 feet long boards. That's easy to pop out. But anyway, so that's one of the things I didn't. But the point I was going to give you is, I got fired from that job. I'm not embarrassed about it. I said, move on. Okay, let's make it better. So this is a great story for young coaches. I became a Assembly Swim School. I became an age group coach, 12 and under. So the head coach Lee Hart took the 13 and up group, which were the better, and I took the younger group. And so in the younger group was Gary Hall Sr., okay? Yeah. Bruce and Steve Furness.
Yeah, this was at Long Beach Swim, right?
No, this is before they went to Long Beach. This is where in Anaheim, a small team. It's called Sammy Lee Swim School. It was real close to Anaheim High School, where I got a job as a coach.
And you had both Furness brothers and Gary Hall?
And Rod Strachan.
Yeah.
Rod and Bruce were about 8 years old when I took over, okay? And Gary was the oldest one, 12. And Gary was already good, okay? He had some national records by age 12. And make a long story short, is that the second or third week I got the job, the head coach had to go someplace. I said, John, here's in Orange County, the Orange County Swim Conference. Now we have about 130 teams in Orange County, but at that time only had 6. I had a dual meet with someone. Okay, so he left me there. I didn't know the kids. I just barely know their names. I didn't know what stroke they were swimming, so I had to make up the lineup. I didn't know how to spell their names, and so here I am. Oh crap! I'm going to get fired again, and I'm doing a shitty job. Some parents got upset. You came to this meeting, you put my son into the wrong event. My son is in the relay. She's not on the relay. Oh, everybody's moaning. And oh, God, this is the end of me. Well, 3 women felt sorry for me. Kay Hall, Pat Furness, and Mrs. Strachan.
Rod Strachan's
I forgot Rod Strachan's mom. They're all passed away. Those 3 women volunteered to help me to write the names of the children, tell me what age they are and what events they put them in. Okay. Now, make a long story short, what's important here is these parents at the time didn't know that their kids going to be world record holders. All 3 of those kids became world record holders and Olympic champions. So when you're dealing with a 10 and under, 12, you don't know what's going to happen with these people. So that's a good example for young people to know. So you can get fired, but you learn from that and get it together. Okay, I'll give you one more quick story about parents, how you could become a good parent, since we talk about parents. So that was a good parents who buy into it, not just got to stand around, but actually bought into it. Make the team better, help this poor young coach because he didn't even speak English, still doesn't speak good English, and help me out. The other one is Caitlin Sandalo. When she retired from USC, came to Ann Arbor to train, getting ready for Beijing, and she was training for the 400 IM and the 400 free with usual training, and Ann Arbor Swim Club just had by that time, Ann Arbor Swim Club became Club Wolverine age group team, and her mom was visiting us back there, and she was sitting with us at the head table, and Caitlin introduced her mom. Said, "This is the greatest mom." Blah blah blah. She doesn't have a clue about swimming. I'm swimming 400 IM, but she doesn't know the time from butterfly to backstroke to butterfly. Doesn't care. The only thing my mom ever cared, that my caps, my goggle, and my suit fits. And if you know Caitlin Sandano, she doesn't even go pick up a newspaper on the street without look like a makeup. Okay, everything has to be perfect. So those are the best. I just gave you the 4 best parents I made contact with over my lifetime.
And there's one of the best swim moms I've ever known, Laura Vogt, going, swim moms. Yeah, we love them. And she's at the Hall of Fame, which of course, John, the International Swimming Hall of Fame next summer is going to open in July. And we will all gather there for some some fantastic opportunities. But Jon Urbanchek, Jack Roach, Bruce Gemmell, and all of our friends and fans out there watching along, I'm very, very thankful that you all have hung in there with us. John, I'm remiss. One of our most loyal listeners brought up your old friend Frank, your teammate Frank
Legacki. Frank is have some issues, medical issues. He's hanging in there. He was the toughest guy. He was the captain of my team. We were there for 4 years. Two of us were the two poorest guy on the team, period. But I did better than he did because I got for $25. I got the car with 4 different fenders on it, colors on it, and I used to give him a ride to the airport or to the freeway to hitchhike back home. Tough guy.
There's our friend Hugh and Kevin Meisel, two of our greatest supporters. And Hugh remembers him from Philadelphia's Father Judge High School. And as old Philly area guys, Bruce and I can both tell you that we're very thankful that all the tough love you've given in a gentle way. And when I think of the humble coaches in the world as we started out, guys like you, guys like Jack, guys like Bruce, that what you've given to this world of aquatics is phenomenal. And again, I want to thank you all. I want to thank our great producer, Joe Auer, who's hung in there with us. And I know we went a little bit of overtime, but I told the people, listen, we're going to let John tell his stories, and we're not going to cut him short. And and for all of us here in the aquatic world, coaches, thank you for continuing to give, because it is well received in this year where the children really need it. So thanks for tonight, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you, guys.
Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim Monkey TV. On the Monkey.